Right, we'll come back to the learning objectives. Hopefully, we can put a tick in those boxes. So hopefully you have gained a better understanding of MiFID II and its implications as far as advisor concerned in terms of due diligence, the situation as far as independent reviews goes, and consider some of the sort of risk mitigation factors. Okay, we've given Mercia's view of risk mitigation and what we do, so hopefully that's been beneficial. I picked up on something from Vilma's presentation that I think I need to mention. You mentioned competence, and something I'm surprised Mark didn't mention. As far as advisors are concerned, there is the EISA diploma. So perhaps that might be a good starting point, perhaps for people who are involved in this space, of maybe going through the EISA diploma. It's 10 hours of CPD-able study and an hour-long exam, unless it's changed since I did it. So I have actually done it myself, so I would strongly recommend that to advisors, and that's a means of demonstrating, or partially demonstrating, your competence in that area as far as EIS is concerned. My job really is sort of very easy. As I said, a few minutes at the start, and finally just to wind up. So I'd like to thank, first of all, sort of Mark for coming along, Richard and Vilma from Hardman, and Paul for joining us from my colleague from Mercia. Big thank you for coming along and attending and spending some of your very valuable time with us today, and I hope it's been valuable. And any feedback would be gratefully appreciated in terms of whether we should be running these events going forward, and any changes we should perhaps make in terms of duration, topics, venue, etc. And finally, just can I throw it open to the floor? Any questions for any of our presenters?
There is an external committee. There's priority lists, so we have a stated priority for different funds in different regions, different sectors. So it is complicated, but there is a policy which is there's a conflicts committee above that as well. Actually, I've got a question. So in a post-MiFID II world, how do we see that the reviewing is actually going to change? And so obviously there's the price point, whether it's who is paid for by, but also it's obviously getting more depth, but you mentioned some scoring processes as well. Are they viable in a post-MiFID II world?
So I think I can answer that from my opinion. I think with regards to scoring in particular, there are no regulations or indications that it's going to become no longer legitimate, or that it's not going to have a place in the market as such. So there isn't anything in MiFID II or the regulatory framework to say that that is not going to be an aspect anymore. However, what Mark touched upon is it's if you are relying on some kind of mechanism which shows you an element of risk, whether it's scoring, whatever it might be, you have to know how that score or that element has been come to, how the conclusion has been made. And I think one of the difficulties in the market at the moment is that there is not enough transparency as to how this conclusion is made. So I think, there can be perhaps scoring elements, there can be, risk scales, whatever it might be. But the most important thing is to actually know how it was made, what was assessed, and how it was concluded. So that's what I could say to that.
So some elements are factual, such as you might want to look at fees and say they're factually comparable between various funds, for example, if life were that easy. And other things are subjective, and it's a subjectivity issue. I've given a score of 12 for the management. Well, what does that actually mean? It's very, very hard. So all we can see is that basically the regulation, the MiFID II is getting the advisor closer and closer to the client, and basically therefore more general scoring mechanisms or assessments are becoming that you still have to have reviews done, but basically it's that personal relationship between the investor and the advisor that is the closest point, and therefore is scoring generally applicable? Is it too broad brush anyway, even if you could understand it and track it and measure it? And it has to be obviously applied consistently as well, not only from time frame to time frame, but across all the spectrum of funds as well. So it's a very difficult thing to do, to provide scoring that makes any sense. And scales of scores that are all around a certain one or two numbers, whether they're 85, 6, 4 or 3 or 9, I think things will change. It's whether the scoring is actually it will be different in the future. I think that's the answer. You won't just be able to have that weight of emphasis on a number.
Thank you, Richard. Gentleman over there.
Yeah, we're seeing the emergence of platforms, either direct-to-consumer platforms.
Yes.
Promoting opportunities and SEOs opportunities. We're also seeing advisory platforms which claim to obviously provide research, due diligence, that advisors need to provide a sort of automated process for selecting certain ISs that you can put the client money into. What's the opinion from today's speakers about that particular sector, which seems to be developing and attracting a lot of funds?
I think that's the point. It's a very emergent industry. That's
startup almost part of the industry, so it's real fragmented at the moment. So you see a lot of different platforms and all trying to do different things, and there's some that do a whole host of research and diligence and do some really good stuff, and there's some at the other end of the scale as well, and there's everything in between. So I think the difficulty for advisors, for you guys at the moment, is trying to pick which ones are going to be the most appropriate ones to use. So we see people like Crown Cube, who just literally plonk stuff on there and you can invest in it as you wish, and there's other stuff at the end of the other spectrum that's got some really great DD and research and work done behind it. So yeah, it's just trying to choose which one's going to be the best one to choose for your appropriate clients. But yeah, it's a new industry. I do have some concerns about it, particularly the crowdfunding platforms. You know, the people investing £100, £200, do they actually understand what they're going into? And is this all going to be a shitstorm in 3 years' time when they try and get their money out and can't do? So I think that's a bit of a worry from that point of view. So the advisor platforms at this stage seem to be the better option or the better horse, because they have done that work in terms of research and diligence. So yeah, it's one to watch, but yeah.
Surely that conflicts in a way with what is being presented today, where you as an advisor are required to do your own due diligence rather than rely on external.
Yeah, so when I say they've done their due diligence, you still need to go back and do your own and try and supplement it with that. But yeah, at least they have done some curation in terms of what goes on their platforms.
So it's not default to.
Yeah, so the crowdcube type crowdfunding actually platform model is give us your business plan, pay us some money, and we stick it on there. Whereas some of the more advisor platforms will say, well, we'll have a look at it, see if it's okay. If it matches our criteria, we'll put it on, and then put it towards guys like yourselves.
Yeah,
so that model is probably a little bit more.
Add to that I do
fleshed
agree.
out.
I don't think it's a default. I think it's an aid. I think a lot of what we're all doing here is to try and aid IFAs in the process of you making personal recommendations. And I think looking, both at the regulations of where the market's going, the fact that EIS is still quite a new market, especially for IFAs. There's not many IFAs involved in this market. There is a real big onus on IFAs and how much work you have to put in before making those recommendations. I mean, it's a tough job.
I take the point, but I think the way that some of the platforms are being promoted is that
this is all you need.
This is all you need.
Absolutely, and
that's
that's again, I think, in my opinion, personal opinion, is where your job is quite tough, because you need to look, as in any market, there are going to be those that perhaps are very good at marketing and saying this is all you need and this is, we're doing everything for you. And then there's other players in the markets perhaps who over time and with experience you perhaps learn to trust or work with, and that's your sort of point of aid. But I agree with you. I'm definitely not saying that everyone in the market is basically doing the best of due diligence, and that's all you need. So yeah.
Tony, you had a question.
I did some platform research recently, and I ended up taking information from Platform, the Landcat, and RSMR. Now, obviously, I'd be delighted to use Hardman & Co. that has information for you, but I need to pay you for that. How do you get paid?
rebate.
Well, this was the point that was brought up earlier. It's how, I mean, we know the research has to be done. The question is who's going to pay, and that's the big crossroads we have. It's the same crossroads in the public markets to some extent as well. All we know is the research has to be. If you were an advisor, you probably would want to have a highly skillfully prepared review that you could consult. We're not telling you what to do. There are very few people in the country who probably got the ability and the scope of analytical skills and workforce that we have. So every senior analyst has to have 20 plus years experience in their particular sector. So you're getting in really high quality input. At the moment, I don't think what we charge for it in this market is probably the economic rate, but as we have another business and we know this is a growth industry and we know there are some extremely interesting providers that are entering the market that need recognition, and they need somebody to say, yes, it does what it says on the tin.
I think to answer your question directly, I mean, our model at the moment is that for IFAs, the reviews are, we don't charge them. There is no subscription models, there is no fees. We are paid by the companies, by the funds or the managers, whatever it is. So you can freely go on our website right now and see all the reviews that we've done in the tax and arts market in the past 12 months, or for as long as their licensing rights are operating. So as a matter of fact, we are operating under a slightly different business model. Obviously there are subscription models, which is mostly how the IFA market and the EIS products work. But with us at the moment, it's available to all.
We're quite interested to hear Mark's on that, because as I said before, there are the reviewers. There are effectively two that we pay for and two that IFAs pay for, and the two that IFA pays for are bigger at the moment. But what do you think about that conflict? Because it seems obviously we prefer to work with people who we don't have to charge, we don't get charged by, and IFAs prefer, well, they don't actually currently, but you can imagine that IFAs might prefer to work with people who don't charge them.
I think this is one of those things where my personal opinion differs from my ESA opinion. So from an ESA point of view, all the reviewers are members, so it's hard to speak ill of any of them. So we're agnostic really. However the market decides how they want to pay and who pays, so be it.
What's your personal opinion?
Personal opinion is a different opinion. But yeah.
But it's just like the debt rating agencies, right? After 08, 09, they got investigated by governments because for the obvious reason that if you're so confident, you know, they've been drawn up quite sharply, and I can't see why that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Enough people get hurt, that's what they'll do. It's after the fact.
Okay, I think I'd better start to draw it to a close from a timing point of view. I think we're pretty close to the time that we said. A big thank you all for once again for coming. If there are any further questions, I'm sure all of the speakers and myself will be here to pick up on anything, but thank you very much for coming, and CPDs will be through via email? Yep. CPD certificates will be through on email. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I've seen that happen before.